All right, testing. Mic check. Let me know if you guys can hear the audio and if you can see the screen. All right, good. Appreciate that. All right, sweet deal. So, don't believe we have news this morning. All right, so U.S. government data may be impacted by the shutdown. Tentative events are subject to delay, revision, or cancellation. And for today, there is no dollar economic news. There's only the Europe president rather, speaking later on this afternoon at 1 p.m. And then we also have the governor of Great Britain speaking at 1:30 p.m. today. So nothing as far as the dollar is concerned is happening today. All right, in regards to economic news. All right, but nonetheless, we're gonna get to it, guys. All right, gonna start off with the dollar. All right, and pretty much it has respected this level of resistance, and we're probably going to go fill that gap now to the downside. So then we want to look for plays on our majors for them to rise. Okay, so for the odd dollar, we may have a push up to supply. That's about 60 pips. Maybe we'll take out the previous week high, and that's about 100 pips. All right, but let's do this by going to the 15-minute time frame. All right, and let's read the structure coming out of this Asian session. Okay, pretty much what we got in this Asian session, guys, for the odd dollar is about a 30 pip consolidation box. All right, where I do see the structure was not just sideways, it was definitely kind of pushing up in structure. All right, so 3 o'clock, right, was London session begin, and out of the Asian session we went and took out the high of the Asian session. Then we had a nice bearish engulfing candle that started pushing the odd dollar lower. All right, so we've taken out the high of the Asian session. Typically this is, the manipulation move, right? So they actually want to go lower, but that's not always the case, right? It has to line up with what the higher time frame shows. Okay, in the higher time frame on the odd dollar, it shows that I mean, it's mixed, right? Because we had this nice run up, then we had this nice pullback to this demand area, and then as we rose up, we should have broken, right? We should have kept rising, right, to go above these highs, but we started to consolidate and build or engineer liquidity with all of this consolidation that we see right here, which built liquidity behind it. All right, so because of that, guys, we're still technically bullish. This is our bullish leg. It just got delayed, right, in consolidating. So we very well could still get that push up, sweeping liquidity, tapping into supply, maybe rising higher, right, from there. Because again, at this point is where we see, the bears kind of show up and, complete that pullback of this upward move. All right, so we are bullish still on the odd dollar, but possibly when we get in this area, we may turn bearish. All right, because again, it was failing to break above, this high. Definitely not even getting close to this one just yet. But that's just, for delays in, the economic stuff that's going on. All right. So just reading this structure, we had a level of demand right here. All right. And pretty much we had a fair value gap sitting right above that demand. So looking left, right, I don't see any gaps. I don't see any demand areas. All right. So that just leaves us with this demand area that price just so happened to kind of break below, right? So, with that, you believe that price should continue falling. But right after we broke below, we had a bullish engulfing candle, right? And prices kind of held this ground since then. And now we've gotten above just this little bit of a level that we see here. And now we're breaking above this structure level right here. So I'm going to put this like this to identify that. All right. And there you have it. Right. So there is your change, right, from going down, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, equal lows, and now higher high. All right. So we just got to break a structure. Did it break with the fair value gap? It did not. All right. So it's just a normal break, but I do like it for a buying opportunity. All right. Let me see. Yep. So it was that low. Okay. And just getting a little lower to see it in details. All right, there's a fair value gap sitting here. Again, this has not been balanced. All right. So this was the strong high, lower high, that broke this low, right? It broke it right here. Again, we danced around for a little bit, but then eventually we started to push up, breaking that high. So again, just looking for potential for price to pull back, all right, for entry, but I don't see any on the 5-minute time frame. So we're going to go all the way down to the 1 minute. All right. And once again, you guys can see how structure begins to show itself in a lot more detail, right? So here, all right, I can see that there's a fair value gap down here, but wasn't really initiating the break of this high. All right, this was an impulsive move here, but then we've already came back to test that. All right, same here. We had a little fair value gap right here. So guys, we do have an opportunity to buy right now the odd dollar with the retest happening, and then we got a nice candle that engulfed the retest candle. All right, so that's what we want to see for a buying opportunity. All right, guys, I'm getting an odd dollar for a buy. All right, entry is going to be here. Stop is going to be right below the wick of this candle. All right, and that's only 3 pips. All right, we can actually push it below the swing. All right, and that's 5 pips, just ridiculous. All right, but we're going to push it up to supply. You can see that area here as well. Okay, and we're talking 16 pips to the next supply level. So if we go back to the 15-minute, this will all start to look a bit more clear. All right, and let's try the 1 hour. All right, so we're aiming just for this supply, but we know that liquidity sits behind it, and this is the actual supply. So instead of 16 pips, we're going for 60 pips on our dollar. All right, guys. So getting back down to the 15, and here is our play. Now, again, we did not take out the low of the Asian session. That doesn't mean we're going to take it out right now. All right. There is a possibility of it balancing out this fair value gap and then going to take out that low and then possibly rising higher from there. But if we look at the dollar, again, the dollar's just ready to drop. All right. And fill this imbalance. Let's just mark it out. All right. Well, there it is. And again, guys, if we get a little lower on the dollar, we can see almost a double top, if you will. We just broke the neckline, right? We're filling the imbalance, but again, there's more imbalance below that we can, we can get to. All right. So because of that, I'm going to be expecting the dollar to continue falling to here to fill that imbalance. And then from there, we'll probably start to push up. All right. But again, back over to the odd dollar. I'm going to go ahead and place my stop. 13. All right. 22 pips. Actually, 25 is not bad. We're still getting a 1 to 2 risk to reward. So that is good. All right. And pulling the trigger. Boom. All right. We're in odd dollar for a buy. Okay. Take profit up to supply. Again, we're getting 55, 60 pips out of this. All right. And again, as we get into profit, which it looks like we're going to be pretty soon, right? We want to move our stop loss, right, into profit, once we probably get above this level. That way we can make it a risk-free trade, even if it decides to sweep liquidity and then go and take out the low of the Asian session. But currently, guys, we're in profit on odd dollar. Again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for your boy. And let me know when you guys are in, or if you got any questions about this particular trade. I'm just going to take a look at Ethereum really quick. Told my team to sell. I know it's pushing all-time highs. All right, but we are still in it, and so far we're still alive, so that's good. Okay, and Bitcoin is also respecting the resistance area. All right, but it's edging at our stop loss, so we'll see how that turns out. All right, but back to our majors. All right, and if odd dollars rising, euro, pound, and New Zealand dollar most likely are rising as well. All right, this is perfect coming from this demand area on euro dollar. Sended, you want to take a look at NASDAQ? All right, we could do that right now. All right, we did get in a buy on odd dollar. I did not post that. Give me a second. I'll put the play in for you guys. Again, take at your own risks. Please understand that this is what your boy is doing. All right, dollar. This was a market buy now. All right, entry. is 0.66042. Okay, stop loss is 0.65795. Again, that's 25 pips on the stop loss. TP is 0.66591. Okay, and that's giving you 54 pips on your take profit. All right, guys, all you need is 50 pips a day. We are in profit on odd dollar right now. Again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. All right, let's take a look at NAS and see what's going on. Okay, so NAS is, well, it's currently taking out this high from Friday. All right, so the high point that Friday made, we've just swept that high, and I'm just going to clean up the chart a little bit to make this more readable. All right, we got past the fair value gap, we broke above supply. All right, but what this is saying right now is that we're failing to displace above this high. Right now, we do have a bit of a fair value gap that tried to break this high. All right, so if this candle closes, all right, if this candle closes above this high, right, the body of the candle, then we will officially have a break of that high to where this fair value gap will be valid, right? And we have another little gap right here. So it's making it even more enticing for price to retrace to these gaps before we get another potential rise out of NAS. All right. Another little gap down here, but I won't worry about that. Here is going to be your demand area sitting right below the gaps. Okay, so now we don't really officially have a high because this candle is not closed yet. We got an hour left on this 2-hour time frame, but let's get a little lower. All right, because here's where all the magic happens. Okay, and again, what you can see from this low is that we went high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and now another higher high. So we can expect price to start to retrace to these fair value gaps, right? Which you can see a lot more here on these lower time frames, right? So it may not get all the way down, but you can still see gaps here, right? Another gap here. So again, it may very well come down to this gap before it begins to rise again. But we do have a high, which is what I came to the lower time frame to take a look at and check on. Therefore, right, we can use Fibonacci, all right, placing it from the low to the high. And this is the area that Fibonacci tells us we're going to get to, which is right here in this fair value gap, all right? And that's at the discounted price, right? So that's what we want. So we'll look to put a long position at this fair value gap, all right? Placing our stops behind the demand area, looking left just to make sure there's, no liquidity sitting anywhere. This is kind of like an equal low, if you will, right here, and then obviously the wick right there. They're sitting in that same zone. All right, so price can definitely wick, take out those lows, right, because liquidity is sitting behind it, and then rise, right? But it could also probably get down to this gap, right? So this is a hard decision to make, right, where you want to get in off this potential buying opportunity. All right, so Sindid, what were you thinking about NASDAQ so far this morning? Or maybe even from your analyst yesterday, were you thinking that it was going to rise or fall, or what were you looking to do? So, and there's two ways that we can go about this. Obviously, knowing what the possibilities are, right? We can place that buy limit order here with our stop, giving it a little bit more wiggle room behind the demand area. all right, and that looks like 100 points, right, on NAS. Obviously, we'll aim for where Fibonacci tells us to, all right, and that is up to this high, and we got our 1 to 2, almost a 1 to 2.5. All right, so you think it will fall, and I'm guessing you got that bias from your higher time frame because we're on the lower time frame right now. But if we get back up to the higher time frame really quick, that is definitely what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for the drop because on the dollar, right, I expected the dollar to rise, okay, as we were falling. Look at the huge imbalance where we kept falling, falling, falling. And then eventually the structure started to shift and change. So you can see right above, right around this area, right on this leg, we started to break structure, right? But we really broke it on this leg, right? So we broke this high, and this high right here. So then we got our pullback. And now this leg is the leg that is supposed to break above this high and potentially get to this level of supply, filling this imbalance. Ironically enough, this is exactly what the JPY did. So if I just take a look, if I go down, there's the JPY, right? So JPY had this, are we on the 4 hour? Oh, it got down. Wait. Okay, so what I was getting at was it had this huge imbalance here, and then it did all of this, but then it gapped down to kind of fill all of that. So this is actually the inverse, but yeah, so don't worry about that. All right, but the dollar, all right, is again just expected to get bullish, but you can see we're probably going to get a push down one more time before we get that initial rise up. So with that being said, yeah, I expect NAS to potentially give us a nice drop, filling all of this imbalance, right, and getting down to this demand level. Now, it may not get all the way down here, but even if, from these highs to where the imbalance is, right, we're talking 376 points, which is fairly good, right, on the indices, okay, especially if you can take out a standard lot, okay, but for right now, we're getting rejection of that high, so we need to get back down to that lower time frame, okay, and just see what we can get. So knowing that we have these gaps below, we could take a sell right now, right? We're getting into it from the very high, all right, and there is potential for it to drop a little bit, like what was it, 100 points or so. So let's see. Yeah, so 150 points, right? Potentially 200 points, right? And that's not bad. All right, I'm going to clean this up really quick because I want it to be clean on this 15-minute time frame. Okay. And what I want to do is get a little lower and see. Okay, 5-minute. Okay. So I'm not showing any change, right? Everything's still up, right? Run, pull back, run, pull back. All right, so we're still up. Nothing has changed on the 5-minute. And here on the 1-minute, again, nothing's really changed, right? So you can see a bit of a support level sitting here, all right, that we could respect and continue rising, right? We also see just a little bit of a trend line here. Okay. Now, it did break the trend line, but that doesn't automatically make it bearish. Okay. Have to still take higher time frame structure into consideration. And again, from a higher time frame, we were still bullish. All right. We were just pulling back or rejecting. So that big wick that we see on the higher time frame on the 4-hour is this move down, right? So the same move up that we made, we've taken the same amount of space coming down, all right? But that's not actually changing the structure from a higher time frame, right? So keep that in mind, all right? But again, if you wanted to take any chances, kind of selling from this high point, by all means, you could. But I just want to see more confirmation that we are actually shifting from uptrend structure to downtrend structure, and we won't possibly get that until possibly breaking this potential low right here. Okay, so again, we broke this high, so as price rose, right, it was enough momentum to break this high, right? So that's making this a strong low, right? So let's illustrate it one more time. This low broke this high right in this area. Okay, we went to go make the new high. All right, and now we're just pulling back to the same area that we broke. All right, so because of that, we can still rise and go and break more highs. And you see how this all, if we just connect the dots, it still looks like bullish market structure, right? So this is why we can't, well, not that we can't, but we probably shouldn't sell just yet, right? We want to see a situation where price comes below this low, which is the strong low. All right. But so, even with that, like I said, you can sell it to kind of, see if it's going to do that. But, you're just selling it without confirmation. Doesn't mean that you can't win. All right. It just means that you don't have price action actually telling you that it wants to go down. You're just assuming that it will go down. And we all know, like, assuming is not strategy, right? So you kind of want to go with something that's more concrete, right? You would rather have somebody, show you, that they're going to be there for you, that they're going to show up for you, than to just tell you that they are, right? Because actions speak louder. All right. So we want confirmation, right? The action, the showing that price is going to change before we take that sell. All right. But again, if you're feeling risky, do what you want. All right. But yeah, for now, still bullish. And with the dollar falling, typically that will, that'll keep the indices rising. All right. So just got to be more patient, right? Typically 9:30 is when things will start to rock and roll with these indices. All right. So, if you take a look at that 9:30 candle and, mark the high and the low of that 9:30 candle specifically, right? You'll have a way to, see what's going to really happen after it breaks the high or the low, right? If you know how to read structure, and then if you know how to, view where your displacement is. So ORB, are you asking what that is? Because if so, that should be order block. ORB should be order block. It may be something else, but let me know if that's what you're asking for and where did you see it. I think you might have saw it when I for in my templates here. So OBR is how I have it. So I don't know if that's what you were talking about. Opening range breakout. Oh, okay. So yeah, you know something. All right. So I don't have to talk to you like a rookie. All right. So yeah, so that opening range breakout, absolutely. You understand exactly where I'm going with that. And that will tell you, depending on how it breaks out, right? If it breaks out with that imbalance, okay, then, we have a good chance of just waiting for price to come back to that imbalance and then take it off or take a trade off in that same direction. So, yeah, that's kind of what we want to wait for. Unfortunately, it just takes time, right? But that's what the professional traders know, right? And that's what they do. They just wait, right? We mark everything up and we just wait for our setup to pull the trigger. All right. So, yeah, check back around that 9:30 time, and then we'll have a bit more concrete, uh, you know, movement on NAS to see exactly which direction it wants to go in. All right. But I'm gonna head back over to the majors. All right. Unless you guys have anything else you want to take a look at. And our odd dollar has gone green. We are now up 4 pips in profit on it, and we're at that fair value gap. All right, and you can see that we're starting to, just give a little bit of a wiggle room down. All right, we don't want to lock in profits yet. It's way too early. All right, but just understand that we should probably still get a rise up as the dollar is still looking bearish. All right, over to euro dollar, and man, we should have took it from the low. All right, we would have been up 34 pips right now, and this took, again, we're on 5 minute, I believe. Took 2 hours. All right, so from about 6 in the morning. All right, so we weren't up that early, but taking a look at the 15 minute, and yeah, so right out this Asian session. So I'm gonna just get this out the way for right now, but here was the high, here was actually here was the low, and then right out the Asian session and the London session, we took out that low drastically, right? And then we got a double bottom, and we just broke this particular high right here. Okay, now that's not the high that we want to break for a change of character. It's this one. Okay, it's that one. So again, we can still potentially fall from this area, right, when euro gets up here, which is kind of what is going on with our dollar right now. It's at that fair value gap and can potentially, start to fall. But there's your order block, all right, for the selling pressure. And then again, we could still just begin to fall. But if we break above this high, all right, then it's going to be time to fly with euro USD. All right, so getting back to the higher time frame. Can you take a look at gold? Yes, sir. Uh, dun, 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 dun. So yeah, got to be careful with euro dollar, even though I do believe we're gonna rise because we swept the low, but we have not swept the high or mitigated this imbalance. So I do think we're gonna get a nice little rise sometime today before we get the drop. All right, but gold, let's see. All right, so gold has broken another high, equal highs at that. All right, and this is no fake out because we broke it with, I'll get rid of this for right now. Okay, but we broke it with some imbalance here. Actually, yeah, there's imbalance there. It's just super tiny, but it is there regardless. All right, so 4 hour, we're still bullish on gold. All right, I don't really see, I believe this is imbalance. Dun, 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 right about there. All right, so taking that into consideration and then getting to a lower time frame, okay, we can start to see that we're getting some sort of a push down on gold, getting a lot of rejection at this particular high. So this is our swing high since we did swing it around. All right, and again, huge imbalance that we can see right here. Now looking down, everything else looks pretty mitigated. All right, so price is efficient below this demand, so I don't expect gold to get below this for right now, but I do see potential for it to get down to this fair value gap. And if we take that sell, we're looking at 40 points, all right, to that fair value gap, possibly a little more, if it just, decides to kind of push a little further into demand. But 40 points is 400 pips on gold. And again, on a micro, that is $4. Wait, let me get the math right. So dollar is 10 pips. So 40, that is $40 on a micro. That's 400 on a mini, and that is 4,000 on a standard. All right, so getting a little lower. This looks pretty good. It does look pretty good. Now, here's the low that broke this high. So this is the strong low that we need to get below, right, to have it as an official change of structure, right, from up to down. All right. So just remember, getting below here is just confirmation, right, that gold most likely wants to continue getting to these magnet areas, like your fair value gaps in your order blocks. All right. But looks like we might have a little bit of divergence here. I see chart making higher highs. Let's take a look at the RSI. And the RSI is making lower highs at that same price point. So right about here to pretty much here. All right, we have bearish divergence. All right, now the thing about it is, I typically see bearish divergence get created and then get swept, and then price comes down, right? So I'm very wary of that. All right, and because of that, I'll be looking to, just try to get a position from a higher price point than where price is right now before I sell it. All right, so that could be setting a limit position, a sell limit position at this high, and that's a 19 pip stop. I'm a 19 point or $19 move. All right, I'd rather this a $10 move, and then taking it down to here for a $62 move. All right, I can play it that way, or again, I can wait until price pushes below this low, giving me confirmation that it wants to fall, right? And then I'll look for a potential, area to sell from at that point, right? So I'll wait for price to pull back, right? Sweep these equal highs, tap into this level of supply, and then, do one of these numbers, right? So that's very hard to, oh, it's not hard, but it's it takes time to see this develop, right? Having it break, having it pull back, having the bear show up, and then pulling the trigger, right? That's going to take some time, and you can see like where I'm almost looking at it. This is 2:15 in the afternoon, right? You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's exactly when that will happen, but I'm just letting you know, like it just takes time. So without having to wait, right, and stare at the chart, it's best to just have your orders in place, right? So I wouldn't want to have a sell stop order on here, right, below this low, because once it activates, it'll probably pull back on me, right? So if anything, I only want sell limits, around these areas, right? So somewhere at the high or somewhere at this particular, area, right here, right? So to be just two sell limits at either one of these, having my stop, decent amount above the divergence, just for, that sweep. And then, I'll be looking to catch gold on the way down. But the way I really would look at that is, again, waiting to see when the dollar gets to this fair value gap. Because once that happens, right, then I know that the dollar should be rising. So then gold should begin to fall. So most likely, again, we're going to see a push up on gold because we're kind of at this mini demand level, if you will, or support level. Okay. And we got the doji, right? We got a bit of a morning star happening. right? Not official, but giving those vibes, all right? So we could still go ahead and push, 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 right? Sweep it out, and then by that time, the dollar may be at its fair value gap where it wants to rise, and then we'll look to sell it from there. So, what were you thinking about gold, right? Were you looking for the sell, or were you still bullish on it because it has been doing like Bitcoin, right? Making all-time highs, and like the Energizer Bunny just keeps going and going, right? So, very hard to sell gold, knowing everything that's going on, but I go by the charts. So if it tells me to sell, I sell. But what were you thinking about gold so far, Sindit? It is. It is indeed. I agree with that. Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's like it's like my Dolphins, man. You know what I mean? I wanna bet with the Dolphins, but I know I should bet against the Dolphins because they blew that cash yesterday, right? And it's in typical Dolphin fashion, right? You know what I mean? Get your hopes up, right? Make you believe, and then send you to the bar. So it's hard to know that something is a certain way and then go against it, right? So I know gold is just unstoppable right now. So selling it is just like don't really want to, right? But again, if the charts tell me that it's going to drop, then I'm always going to take that opportunity. But for right now, again, a position on gold right now is, I mean, a buy position on gold right now, knowing that it's breaking all-time highs, is not bad, right? So we can do it like this, right? And just get right below that demand. Again, still, 10-point move, right? So that's 100 pips, all right? On a mini, that's $10, et cetera, right? 10, 100, or 1,000, depending on your lot. But we could just push it up right to divergence, and we can get our 1 to 2 right about there, right? So you can get either $20 on a micro, 200 on a mini, or two bands on a standard, just this quick. All right, and just to put this in perspective, getting it from this price point up to this high, you know what I mean? We can just kind of look at the past, right, and just say let's try to get it from like right here, all right, to right about here. Again, that was a 15-point move, and it only took an hour and 15 minutes. So again, if you're able to take out a standard, you may have two bands, right, in an hour and 15 minutes. Okay, might have more than that. It might just keep breaking these highs. All right, the way that price is kind of pulling back in this fashion, right, gives that uh, vibe that it wants to rise anyway. All right, especially with this doji at this demand, right? That also kind of gives it away. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take the buy right now because the dollar is bearish. Okay, so one moment. All right, so let's get that in. Why am I not seeing my position? Hold on. Oh, there it is. It was just delayed. All right, so getting back to 15-minute. Okay, stop right here and TP right there. All right, so again, this is just a little bit over 3 minis. All right, so uh, taking that out is going to net me 760, and I'll lose 349. All right, but that's the name of the game when you're playing with gold. All right, so again, I'll throw this in the chat. Yeah, no matter what you do, it's a risk, Sindit. So I can't stress that enough, is that if you're not a risk taker, or you're not okay with understanding that this takes risks, then, you know, this may not be the place to be, right? You know what I mean? But, that's something that I feel personally, a lot of trade keeps a lot of traders from making it, right? They're just too scared to lose, right? And that keeps them from winning. You feel where I'm coming from? All right. And 394. Okay, yep. And then TP is 39.57. Oh, buying at the top is not good. Yeah, so buying high is never what we really want to do. But this is not long-term play. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we're not looking to, really catch this to a higher time frame swing. We're just catching this basically above the swing on the 15-minute time frame. So again, in the next hour, you can blink, honestly, right? You might go get some water, come back, and this could easily hit TP, right? Because again, the New York session is open. We're almost, it's about 15 minutes or so from the stock market opening, and the dollar is already pushing down from 5 a.m. this morning, right? So just, we could still get that push down quickly. You never know when volatility kicks in, or how fast or how slow a price may move, given whatever, right? You know what I mean? You just never know. So again, I agree with you 100%, right? Just the note, we are in profit on gold right now, okay? But I'm just saying, in terms of what you're getting at, which is very true. It's just we're not on that type of time. Like, we're for this particular trade, we're not like swinging for the fences, and we're buying at a super high price, right? You know what I mean? This is something where we are buying high, right? But we're just trying to catch it to a lower time frame swing, right? And that, the structure is still that way. So you remember how you were thinking, or you were talking about how gold just kept rising, kept making all-time highs. There's been plenty of times, and again, my team knows I've been caught up in this heavily, where I'm looking for the sell. I'm looking for the sell, right? But I'm going against what the chart is telling me. The chart is telling me to buy. The chart is telling me that it's up. The chart is telling me that it's going to keep rising. So what you'll learn over time is that you want to just keep going with it until it shows you that it doesn't want to do that anymore, right? And gold hasn't really shown us that it wants to do that anymore. Clearly, you can see from us being in profit at this moment. You get what I'm saying? But if I can give you anything, man, please don't let the fear, right, control you, okay? Because you'll never, you'll never get that opportunity to see, what you could have done or what it could have been, right? You know what I mean? We all know every trade we get into, we can lose. But why is everybody only thinking about that? Why is nobody thinking about, well, that's a 50, it's a 50-50 chance, right? On every single trade. Yeah, you can lose, but you can also win. What happens if you win? Okay, if you win, well, clearly, you're going to get your money, right? You're going to level up, right? And you're just going to feel good that you took your chance, instead of just, spending all this time marking up the charts, coming to the lives, doing all the videos, and then not trading. Like that, to me, that's a waste of time. You know what I mean? Like, you might as well pull the trigger, bro. You did all of this work, and you're doing all of this for what? Right? You know what I mean? Like, don't let it hold you. All right? Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But here we are. Profit on gold. So we're gonna check our dollar. We're probably pushing up a little more as well. And we're just sitting in there. All right. So again, if you guys want to lock this in, feel free, right, to make it risk free, because again, it is a little indecisive right now. But I'm gonna stick with it and wait for it to get above this resistance area for a sweep of liquidity, and then I'll move my stop loss, because again, I'm only got 24 pips on this trade, right? That's really nothing in my book, because 50 pips is typically what I'll have on a stop loss any given day of the week. All right. What do you think about prop firms? I hate them. I hate them. Now, let me not say that because I've done a few prop firms. I got payouts. I got certificates or certifications and whatnot. Right? That's cool and all. Right? It's just for me, it wasn't to really use their capital. It was just to certify myself, right? To let everybody know, hey, I know something, right? I know what I'm doing, et cetera, et cetera. But in all honesty, bro, there's way too many games that these prop firms play, and your hair will get gray. You understand? Like you will pull out your hair, right? You'll break a couple of chairs, you'll toss your kids across the room, right? Because what you'll notice is that, their rules change up, right? And then even sometimes it's not even just their rules changing up, they have technical issues. And then all of a sudden you're battling with customer service or their support to try to figure out, hey, why did a winning trade that you were in magically get closed out? And then they'll come up with some, random reasoning, or if they even get back to you at all, to say it was legit. And now you're like, you know, you want to fight, you know what I mean? But you can't put your hands on anybody because, they're overseas and you're way over there. It's like, it's a real pain, right? Now, don't get it twisted. You can still obviously, you know, follow the rules, get funded, possibly get your payout, right? You know what I mean? But it's too constricted in terms of having your hands tied behind your back. You're always trading with your hands tied. And for me, I don't like that, right? If you really go back and you look at all the deposits or all the payments that you've made for a prop firm, I guarantee you it will blow your mind how much you paid for prop firm challenges, right? And if you had took that money and just put it into your regular trading account, right, and trade it with that capital, you'll be surprised because not only is it, a lot of money that you've been able to put in these prop firms that you would have been able to put in your normal account, but you'll also be trading without their rules, right? You know what I mean? Oh, you can't go down 5% or 10%. Well, Sandia, you've gone down 15% on your normal account and you still were alive in the trade. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't mean you don't know how to trade. It just means that, you didn't meet their rules, right? In terms of, what it was. So it makes things a whole lot stricter. And eventually you will see that there's tons of games that these prop firms play, and I just don't want to play that game. So, to each his own, you know, for sure, because yeah, people get paid and all that good stuff. But for me, I'd rather trade with my own money on my own personal account and feel good, feel however I want to feel about winning or losing in that regard. Plus, right? The payouts don't always pay out, right? You know what I mean? You have issues with payouts, right? You got to wait 2 weeks. You got to wait 2 weeks and 3 days and 5 minutes and 6 seconds and all this other kind of crap before you actually get your payout. With your personal account, you hit withdraw and you're going to get it, practically 24 hours, if that, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of pros and cons, with it. But for me, bro, yeah, I hung it up. I hung up the prop firms because I just see way too much manipulation. And then the frustration will make you want to hang this all up. And then I promise you, when you go back to look at how much you spent, you're gonna cry. All right. I hate them. I hate them too. Just wanted to hear your thoughts. Oh yeah, well, we're on the same page. All right. All right. We definitely agree. Okay. Just take your money, man, and put it on you. Bet on yourself. All right. There's no better way of like, or there's no better set of rules to follow than your own. Do you understand what I'm saying? Can you give me some tips on growing small accounts? Absolutely. Take the money. No, so yeah, let's if you if you know who your broker is, go ahead and throw it in the chat, and I can tell me what the leverage is. But typically most overseas brokers are giving a leverage of at least 1 to 500, right? And look, see, Nas is still pushing up, right? So I told you we couldn't take that sell yet, right? But if we took that buy, we would have been in profit. Again, it lines up with the dollar falling. But just again to your question about Exnet, so I haven't heard of them, but I'm pretty sure they give you at least a leverage of 1 to 5. So 1 to 500. So the way you do this, right? If you really want to build like a small account, first you got to really know which pairs, right? Whether it's commodities, indices, majors, or minors, you have to know which ones pay. Okay, which ones pay. So if we're going with the majors, right, we're going with GU. All right, GU pays. All right, so I'll just throw these in here. Again, you may know this already. All right, so majors, I'll say GU. All right, for minors, I'm going to say GJ. All right, for indices. Now, for indices, again, we all know US 30 is the boss, NAS is next, and SPY is last. But if you're trying to build, a small account fast, I would go with NAS, all right, for the indices. And then for commodities, I will go with silver, okay? So if you want to grow, like let's say $50, $100, right? This is, pretty, doable, if you will, for most, right? I would stick to one of these pairs, bro. I would stick to one of these pairs for a month. Okay? I would stick to one of these pairs for a month. You don't trade anything but one of these pairs. Pick which one and only trade that one pair. I guarantee you, right? This is probably something that, most have not done, right? In terms of just picking one. Everybody's all over the place. They're in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 trades at any given time. This is a no-no, bro. Right? You can have a good amount of trades that you're up on, but the ones that you're down on make the ones that you're up on seem like they're not up at all. Right? You get what I mean? And plus, you're not going to really get to understand the movement if you keep switching from pair to pair to pair because you're just trying to run it up. And more importantly, it's your psychology above everything. So if you're if you're looking to flip a small account because you're like, man, I gotta flip it, I gotta flip it, I gotta flip it, right? And you're saying to yourself, man, I gotta make this money, I gotta make this money, I gotta make this money. You're not gonna make the money. You understand what I'm saying? Because nothing about what you said was about being patient. Nothing about what you said was giving what the market is showing you. Nothing about what you said had anything to do with what it takes to actually make the money. You're just wanting, it's just a need, right? Your psychology is feeding you in greed, right? That's where you'll have FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. You'll see price pushing one way, you'll take that and you'll just take it off that momentum because you feel like, oh, I can catch this and it'll make my account blow, but it's going to do the complete opposite, right? That push up was just to entice people and then they reversed it. And you're like, holy shit, why does this keep happening to me? Right? Things like that. So again, pick one of these pairs, trade them for a month, right? And do not over leverage. Okay? Do not over leverage. So I'm gonna just give you an example, right? If we go with GU, okay, let's say it costs you $10, right, to get into a mini lot on GU, right? Let's just say that this is all hypothetical, but let's say it costs you $10 to get into a mini lot on GU. You have $100 in your account. Okay, so if you buy a mini lot of GU that costs you $10, then you're only using $10 of your capital, right? So you're gonna be less than 1%, 10%, whatever it is of that $100, right? So when you look at your margin that you're using, it'll say, oh, you're only using 10% of your margin. That's great. You want your margin to stay below 50%. If you can pay attention to that and you can make sure that on any given trade that you're in, no matter what the lot size is, right? Because I'm just giving you hypothetical for GU costing $10. But if you really make sure that whatever the lot size is, right? Even if it's a standard, if it's not taking more than 50% of your capital, you're in good shape. right? You just have to let it go and let it play out throughout the day, throughout the week, whatever. You can't go trying to adjust anything. When you see a good, oh well, obviously having a good setup is key as well. So if you're able to understand market structure and you understand able to understand the concept of when to get into a trade, right? When it's ready, right? That's also going to help you big time. But you know, before that part, you got to have, that mental toughness to only trade one pair, right? You understand what I'm saying? To only take out a lot size that's not taking up more than 50% of your margin, okay? And you also have to be patient, right? You have to be patient to let the trade play out. Everybody's trying to make the money right now, and that's why they don't make it, because they don't understand this all takes time. You know what I mean? Plenty of times my team has waited all week for the play to pop out on Friday. We were in the UJ, right? We were in a buy on UJ here, all right? And I'll show you, okay? So just right here, we bought UJ from down here, but we were waiting and waiting and waiting, and then Sunday that just came, look what happened. Kaboom. It just shot completely up, and my team was going crazy. I was going crazy, right? Because it took all that time, all this time we waited. So here was that week. So it was Monday, it was falling, but we waited for it to get to the low, right? So we waited from Wednesday to Thursday to Friday, right? So even with Friday, we got to profit a little bit, but it was just moving slow, right? And then here Sunday, kaboom, right? So if you're not patient enough to like give the trade a few days to play out, chances are you're not gonna you're not gonna see what you need to see. Okay. But I guarantee you, bro, if you take this approach, one pair, right? Whichever one of these looks the best to you, or you know them the best, one pair for a month, right? Day and night, night and day, but hopefully during the times that they move, right? That's key. Okay. Keeping your margin below 50%. That simply just means don't over leverage. Do not take out a lot size that you cannot chew. Okay. Don't bite off more than you can chew. If you do that, I promise you, you will be okay. And you will see your account grow so quickly, it's going to blow your mind. And then you're going to say to yourself, damn, why was I trading so many pairs before? Damn, why wasn't I waiting before? Damn, why wasn't I? Everything's going to come to the light. It's going to expose all the faults that you had previously. I promise you. I started with 100 and I'm sitting at 752 now. Boom. So I take it that you're already, doing some of the things that I'm mentioning right now. But that's exactly how that goes. You know what I mean? My boy Nate is in here and he's flipped 100 to 1,000 almost every week. Right? And we know him for that. Right? So again, you are on that same path, right? With that kind of result, if you just stay consistent, right? It's not about, you ain't got to prove nothing to nobody, right? You're not in competition with me, Nate, nobody. You understand what I'm saying? It's just you and you, right? You look at the chart, you see what you need, you take it, and you're going about your business, right? And you see it grow. When the money's there, you take the money, right? And that's just it, man. It's pretty simple, but people like to complicate it or overcomplicate it. Not me. All right, I'm gonna give it to you direct, and that's what it'll be. It's hard, bro. You say, yeah, well, so what's hard is being patient. You're right. That's hard. Okay, trading is not hard. It's being patient that's hard. It's fighting your FOMO. It's fighting your greed, right? It's fighting your get back, right? You want to get it back in blood when you lose. It's not over leveraging. Those are the hard parts. The trading is not hard. Okay, not at all. You got it. You absolutely got it, man. And again, I appreciate y'all for showing up. This is my time this morning. Again, if you want to tap in, forexwithbain.com and click the link to join the Discord, and we'll get rocking and rolling. But tomorrow and for the rest of the week, I will be live again, and we do have different economic news that we can take advantage of. But you can see now that the stock market is open, we were getting more movement on NAS. All right, and we probably should have bought it, but you know, we are looking for that drop, so we're just being more patient to wait for the dollar to get into its spot. There we go. So we're starting to get a little something. Okay, we haven't broken below here yet, but you can see just a lower high getting created and a nice bearish engulfing candle, all right, with imbalance. So this is starting to look up, all right, for the sell. Let's just take a look at the dollar really quick. All right, dollar hasn't pushed down yet, but like I said, we just got to wait, right? I know when to wait, all right, and that's what makes the difference between the rookies and the pros, right? They see this, right, and they want to sell right now, but it'll just come down a little bit more and then it'll start rising again, and they're just like, damn it, right? It's just one of those things. So again, be careful, right, with impulsive moves that you see. That doesn't always mean that it's going to go, right? You need structure to tell you that, hey, we're breaking lows with imbalance. That means we're going to go, right? And then you get your pullback, and then you get your engulfing, or at least a few candles coming in that direction, and then you take the trade. All right, so let's just check gold really quick, and boom. All right, I'm not surprised. Okay, so again, already up about, what is that? Maybe 34 to 38, 4 points on gold. So that's 40 pips. All right, and then odd dollar. All right, look at that, getting ready to push up a little bit more. We're up 6 pips and counting. All right, guys, so profits this morning. All right, and it'll probably be very quickly that we get this to hit TP on both gold and odd dollar. Funny enough, the odd is, a place where there's a lot of gold, so it just makes sense that both of these are rising. They are correlated positively, very heavy. So we got 2 good trades this morning, guys, that get us paid. So again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for me. But let me see. Hold on, let me get that right. Let me check it too. It should be so. Okay, try that link and let me know if that comes up. Oh, just lost Bitcoin or Ethereum. All right, so did that come up for you? All right, so then I was just waiting for you to give confirmation on that. But I do see that it's coming up for me. Hopefully it is coming up for you. Guys, any questions, any comments, any concerns? All right, that'll do it, guys. Appreciate y'all showing up. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 8:30. So tap in. All right. Meantime, in between time, y'all have a great morning. Peace.